You're listening to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay, and this is a program called
The Wonderful World of Wardini Books. I'm sorry, I do not have any
That's all right.
additions to that today.
Today you are forgiven for being short in the title. Anyway, as always...
Short in the title.
My pleasure to have you, Lou, in from Wardini Books in Havelock North, and you also have a fabulous store over there in Napier, all over the interweb as well. You're on Facebook, you're on the web, you've got a website, you've got everything.
Yep, we do.
And today we have three more fabulous books, or four books to have a bit of a look at today, and the first one is called Flooded.
Flooded. It's a great cover, isn't it?
Yes,
so I had
is.
to pick that up and read that this morning, and it's by Maria Ho Ilustrajo.
What was it again?
No. You can replay that in a moment when you've recorded it. So, it's clearly about water and a flood, and there is this little critter. It's one of those anthropomorphized animal books, so there are no human beings in it. There are all sorts of different animals that live in this city. And one morning they wake up and it's just like any other summer's day, and this beautiful creature with his gorgeous tail and wonderful moustache realises that something's different. It's not a problem as yet. The city was just a bit weird. And you see him go in his cupboard, and you're like, okay, what's he getting out? He's getting out a pair of gumboots with the looks of it, an oxygen tank. That's interesting. Okay,
yes,
so what's been going on for this? I'm going to call him an otter because I don't know what he is.
He looks like something out of a fantasy novel.
He does a bit, doesn't he? A magical creature.
Yes, indeed.
But the city's wet.
Oh, look at
Ken.
that.
Yeah, so there's quite the flood. And then where this book goes is that nobody seemed to mind a little bit of water. It was a great excuse to wear wellies, so it's clearly come from a sort of British. They're not gumboots, they're wellies in this. So excuse me, hello, madam. And this creature that we met to begin with is trying to bring people's attention to the fact that something is wrong. Something is not right at all, and everyone's like, oh yeah, okay. And he's on his phone and he's busy going to work, but he's got his coffee, he's all right. The city just carries on as normal, going up, going down. It's just a bit of water. Bit of a damp commute today, and they just go, and treat it like there's nothing going on, but like it's in your offices and your schools, and there they are having dinner. Oh, how strange! Oh, isn't it weird? But everything's fine.
You'll be right, mate.
Yeah, exactly. And the water kept on rising. Still, most people didn't seem to mind. They knew it would go away soon, but of course it doesn't. It doesn't. And this carries on, and everyone's just carrying on. What's it? It's just a bit of water. But this little animal is like, well, hang on, what about the small animals? It's actually becoming quite a problem for the small animals. And what can they now do about it? People are selling goggles and oxygen masks in the street. What does that remind you of? Yes. And then all of a sudden everybody is underwater, and now the placards are out, and now they're saying something needs to be done, we need to do something. So there you go, allegory.
A moral coming on here.
Well, what do you think?
Yes, indeed. Global warming.
Well, it's not said. It's not said that that's what it is, but that's where you go straight away. You're like, okay, so scientists and greenies have been shouting about this for decades and decades and decades, and it's here now.
Yes, it is. Look at that.
And Tidal Rafferty is flooded constantly. And so that's where we are. But now you know why the little fella got his oxygen and his wellies out. He was a prepper, wasn't he? He was ready. He was totally ready for this. And then, actually, it's not hopeless, because this is quite beautiful. It wasn't a job for only one. Everyone had to work together, and they did. So they are doing whatever they can, and they're making sure that they're looking after one another, and the problem drained away. But of course, nothing was the same as before, and then there are other problems. There are new problems because you have put the sticking plaster on one, but then other problems will be there. But it's only okay because they knew how to fix a problem and a worry, and that was by doing it together.
So it's a story all about hope in the end.
It really is. That, things look pretty stuffed.
Yes.
And they do. And so, and especially for children, when they're having it rammed down the throat all the time, climate change, and it's terrible, and, future generations are going to suffer. And what are you doing about it? Well, I'm 5. What can I do about it? Thank you. It's your fault.
Yes.
And I think that is a really reassuring book, that this is something that's happened and happening. And it's done in such a generalised way. If I was reading it to a small child, I wouldn't say, oh, it's a bit like climate change, isn't it? You'd just let them make their own connections and go, but it's so, because we can do things when we come together
Yes.
to find
Yeah.
solutions. So
That's
I
what
think
I-
that's a really clever book.
Hope and working together. You can't beat it.
No,
What a great world it would be if we all did that all the time.
absolutely.
Tell us about the Tomo and Displaced.
Yes, so I brought these. I know we've reviewed them before,
Yes.
but Marianne Scott, the Tomo, and Christina Sanders with Displaced are finalists in the New Zealand Book Awards for Children and Young Adults. So that's in the junior fiction category, and that's in the young adult category. And they both live in Havelock North.
Wow.
So Hawke's Bay, really, as we're always saying, is the centre of the universe. You don't have to go very far to find damn fine books
You
to
do not.
read. So the Tomo rural, and if people aren't familiar with what a Tomo is, it's one of those massive sort of underground caves. And, you know, in this one, the dog falls into it, and it's up to the young lad who's got a lot going on. Dad's really, really unwell. He's been shipped off for Christmas to this farm where the farmer's a bit of a grump, and, you know, and his dog, which is actually his dad's dog, and he's supposed to be looking after this
Stuck in a cave.
jolly dog. And the farmer's like, you never get him out, you just leave him, you know, in a very
Yes.
practical sort of
Matter of
way.
fact.
And he's like, no, I'm terrified. I'm going to rescue the dog. And it's actually based on something that happened within Marianne's family years ago, generations ago. So, a beautiful doggo with
Yes.
the different coloured eyes. And in Displaced, this is about immigration coming across. Eloise meets Lars, a Norwegian labourer travelling below decks from Europe. They're coming to New Zealand. And then it's about what happens with Eloise's family from Cornwall to New Zealand. Not all of them even get to New Zealand, you know, because the passage was that
Yes.
dangerous. And then what happens when they get here, and the father that they're supposed to be meeting turns out to have some shady stuff going on. Yeah, really, both beautifully written, and that's been recognised in the Book Awards, so that's fabulous. Yeah,
And I must say,
congratulations.
I am very much a cover-driven shopper of books, and both of those covers appeal to me.
Yeah.
So I would think, wow, I'm going to have a good look at that. Whereas the next book that you're about to review, I'm sure, is going to be marvellous, but that cover does nothing for me, and I would probably bypass it, even though it's probably... unless you
Isn't
said to me,
that
that is a great book,
funny?
you should read it, yeah.
Because I order all the books for my shops, right? I've done that. I saw this on the shelf, and I thought, what's that?
Yeah.
And I do that all the time because we have so many books coming through. So I didn't remember it at all, but I thought, what a beautiful cover.
Really?
I love the green. I've just painted my bedroom that colour.
I thought, oh, what a boring cover.
No, I thought the forest, and the fact that it's called the Lush Detail.
Yes.
And I was like, what's a shtetl? And it's a Jewish village. I now know.
Yes.
So, and then I read the blurb and went, that sounds bizarre as all holy hell. I'm going to read that. So it's about a shtetl in the middle of Poland, in the middle of forestry. You know, it's really isolated, this village. It's a Jewish village in the middle of Poland. And it's modern day, and people might be thinking, didn't something really terrible happen to Polish Jews during the Second World War?
Didn't they?
The Germans did not find this village. So they are completely self-sufficient. They have their own food production, their bakeries, their transport is by horse and cart. They are very orthodox, and it's all working.
So
you know?
are they in a time warp?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And may I just point out at this point, because it is not clear when I describe it to people, that it is tongue-in-cheek a lot of the time and quite fun and very Jewish in its humour, which is quite a sort of dry humour from what I've read.
Yes.
And there's this couple, then they've just got married, young married couple, and the wife hates her husband, and she's desperate to try and get divorced. But of course, the rabbis are trying to discourage them. Well, try this. You know, they're not saying it's out of the question, but you've only been married 2 minutes. And the couple are having the problems, and then she goes missing, and then he goes missing, and they're like, goodness gracious me, he's murdered her, hasn't he, and run off. That's what they leap to straight away.
Yes.
And there hasn't been a murder in Crescott in 144 years or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? And they've got no police or anything. So they pick a member of their community who doesn't have very many family ties and who nobody values very much. And they decide that he's going to go out into the big city, it's Smolsky or something, which is the biggest city that they know about, and he's going to get help. But when he gets there, nobody believes him.
Oh, really?
Like, you know what happened to all the Jews, right? You know, there's no Jewish village like this left in, you know. But he sticks to his story. He's incarcerated in a mental institution, rah. And then earlier in the book, you know that at some point a big helicopter comes down into the village with Yankel, this guy, with them. So the modern world comes into the village. And then, of course, all hell breaks loose. So, what a fascinating premise
Yeah.
for a book.
It does sound like a fascinating premise. And you mentioned that the helicopter comes in, brings the 21st century into that little village. So is that a good ending or a bad ending?
Don't know yet. I
got to
must
the
admit
ending.
I haven't finished it yet, but I just
so-
wanted to tell you about it because it's just it's so unusual, you know, and I like to pick up a book that I've never read anything like this before.
The Lush Detail. I love the title
Isn't
anyway.
it great? By
is
Max
great.
Gross. Should have said that.
All right, and we can get all of these fabulous books at Wardini Books in Havelock North or in Napier, or we can get them online. As always, Lou, my pleasure. You look after yourself. Talk to the same time, same place next time.
Thank you very much.